The bandwidth for this episode of the AR-15 podcast is sponsored by the Firearms Radio Network. Firearmsradio.tv.
And welcome to episode 73 of the AR-15 podcast. I am your host tonight. That's right, I am the host. Just for tonight, of course, Anthony Hardy. Reed is out for the evening, as is JW. So you're stuck with me whether you like it or not. This is the podcast about your favorite black rifle. This show is for you, whether you're building your first AR or you've been building ARs for years. There's something we can all do to take our black rifle to the next level. Brownells helps make this show possible. Don't forget that Brownells is there for you anytime you make a mistake. Just like when Jake, or me, shoot a takedown pin to tend across avocado green linoleum flooring and it skids underneath your cabinets, which is never a pleasant experience, let me tell you that. So we'll talk about our Brownells item of the week. I picked something that reflects my newbie experience in ARs. As I've mentioned many times in the past, I've been working with ARs for a couple of years now, so I'm very new in the field. And I was pleasantly surprised when I found out about all of the different capabilities, the different calibers that you could get ARs in. And when I found out you could shoot 9mm in an AR, I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. So one of the things I wanted to share with everybody, which I'm sure that almost everyone probably does know, is that you can get a 9mm kit for your AR. So I've linked to the Yankee Hill 9mm kit. They call it their entry level, the YHM 7300, and it's not too badly priced for a full complete upper kit. And you can put that together, and it comes with a magazine as well. Pop that right on top of your existing lower, and you can shoot your 9mm. So that's kind of a nice thing you might be able to have and give a shot at some point. So remember, since Brownells is such a wonderful sponsor, if you are looking for AR-15 parts and you enjoy our podcast, or you're just looking for those parts, we do encourage you to use Brownells, and you can help us as well by going to ar15podcast.com/parts. To be able to get those parts for your AR. Also, if you are looking for things on Amazon, and who doesn't, please help us out as well if you would like to help contribute to the podcast by going to our Amazon affiliate link at ar15podcast.com/Amazon. And again, as we have mentioned in the past, we are looking for volunteers to do video editing for the AR-15 podcast. So if you're interested, please send an email to feedback@ar15podcast.com. If you have any sort of video editing skills and you would like to help us put that information together. I have a feeling you'd probably get some good inside information on building the AR-15. I know that if you remember last week, Reed was talking about his shadow box that he'll be putting together. So you'd probably get to edit those videos on the build process, and you'd probably get to see a lot of really good footage up really good and close. So if you have any interest in that build and you want to see all the behind the scenes bits and pieces that he does as he gets ready for the build, I'd really encourage you to take a look at helping us out with that. That'd be really handy for us to have. So now we'll move on to the main topic, and this show is the Newbie AR Experience. You're dealing with me, so as we've talked about, my knowledge is very limited, as most of you know. So I wanted to really, since I couldn't talk in depth about any certain one specific topic, I wanted to talk about the entry into the field and talk about my experience as a newbie coming into the AR-15. And that there are a lot of different ways that people might come into the field. They might come in from movies, video games. We see a lot of ARs in video games. Maybe their friends get them interested. I know several of my friends, when they've seen my AR, are like, "Ooh, what's that? I want one of those." Or maybe they go hunting with someone, and they happen to have an AR-15 as a backup rifle, or maybe even a primary hunting rifle, depending on what you're hunting. Or even, perhaps even better, one of the more interesting ways that you can get involved with ARs would be through shooting sports. If you go to 3-gun or any sort of other competitive shooting sport, it could be a really wonderful way to get interested. Personally, I got interested just strictly from a self-defense perspective. I looked at shotguns and things of that nature, and those things are absolutely wonderful for self-defense. But I thought, I think an AR would prove very, very useful and very versatile for self-defense as well. And I feel fairly certain that if I ever had a need for it, it would serve me very well in that capacity. Moving on, there are a lot of different things when you start off with an AR that are firsts for you. And I won't wax too poetic on you guys. I'm not going to go in that direction. But there are different things that happens. The first time you actually pull the trigger on an AR, there's a certain, what did you expect? Did you get what you expect? Did it happen the way you wanted it to happen? I remember the very first time that I pulled the trigger was on my Bushmaster. I didn't get to shoot anyone else's first. It was my own rifle first, and I literally had no idea what to expect. I didn't have anybody to show me how to do anything, so I had to look everything up online. Excuse me. And got out to the range and figured out how to load everything up, and I knew enough about gun safety, the basics. I'd taken some pistol courses, so I knew enough about the basics of gun safety to do some basic safe operation. And when I pulled that trigger, I really, literally had no idea how much recoil to expect or anything. And that first shot was so sweet. I didn't hit anything. I mean, didn't hit what I was aiming at specifically, let's put it that way. The round did go down range safely, but there was so little recoil, I was really shocked. So I was very pleasantly surprised, and I will always remember that first shot very, very fondly. So it made a very strong impression on me, and I knew that the rifle would be something that I would come to love very, very quickly, and of course it has been. One thing we've talked about several times throughout several different episodes were accessories, and a lot of different people go for a different accessory when they're talking about their very first accessory. And I was trying to think back, what was the very first accessory that I put on my AR? And I don't remember. It wasn't my battery assist device, though I do love that thing. And it wasn't the optic, because that's just very recent. It wasn't the 45 optic reset sights, because that was very recent. I'm not real sure. Actually, the very first thing that I did is that I had a set screw that was given to me that allowed me to take up some of the slack in the trigger. And so I took inside the grip, there's a screw in there, and you can unscrew that, and it comes out, and you have to, I think I took the grip out, and there's a little pin and springs and stuff in there, and it was, let's just say it was interesting. It didn't quite follow the videos on the internet, and I almost did lose a spring as it popped across the countertop there in the kitchen. But I was able to get that all put back together, no problem, and get that set screw put in there, and was able to take up all the trigger slack, or almost all of the trigger slack from the factory, and it's made quite a bit of difference. So that would be combination first accessory and modification. If we're going to strictly say accessory, it'd probably have to be the battery assist device. And if we want to talk modifications, it would be the set screw. And I did a little bit of a trigger job, did some polishing inside the trigger. I took the trigger apart, did some polishing, and took some of the grit out of the trigger, so it's much smoother, crisper pull on the trigger, which has actually helped the accuracy quite a bit. So those are the first things that I did, and they have made a difference in my rifle. And I would like to think that they would help just about anybody, and they were very, very easy to do. And as we all know, that's one of the great things about our black rifles, is that they're so easily to modify. I've got a topic down here next as called obsessions, and those can vary greatly from person to person. I'm going to pick on Reed just a little. I would have to say that Reed has an obsession with iron sights. A very good obsession. I would call it's a valid one, someone that everyone can benefit from. I can't say what JW's obsession would be specifically. He hasn't given me quite enough information yet. I've been listening to Reed for how many episodes now, so I had quite a bit of information for him. JW and I started right around the same time, so I don't quite have as much knowledge about his background. And I haven't quite figured out what my obsession is going to be, to tell you the complete truth, though. I would have to say I have this crazy thought process that a bipod will make me a better shooter. Logically, I know that that's not going to happen. but there is something in the back of my head that keeps telling me if I manage to go and get one, then I will become a better shooter. And that's just not true. I have my next major topic on here is training. And this is something that when it comes to rifles that I have very, very little of. I have quite a bit of pistol training. I'm actually an NRA certified pistol instructor, but when it comes to rifles, it's quite a bit of a different story. Everything I have is self-taught, so I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I've listened to our podcast here. I've listened to several other podcasts to get a lot of good ideas. And you know, there's a lot of things you can do that way to learn a lot of very good basics. But I mentioned it last week. I went down and was able to sit at a range with one of the Appleseed guys for just a little very short period of time. He wasn't actually giving me lessons. I was using his SCAR to get some trigger time for the episode last week, but he was just watching me, and every once in a while he'd say, you know, pointer this or pointer that, here, do this a little bit different. He gave me 3 or 4 pointers while I was there, and it showed me the difference between having a friend who is a very, very good shooter watch me shoot, and having an instructor who has been taught how to teach watch me shoot. And the difference is very drastic. An instructor is going to be able to give you very specific advice. So if you haven't gone out and taken any sort of training from an instructor for your AR, I would encourage you to do so, because there's some, even if you're very good with your weapon, there's some very good instruction that can be had out there, and there are some great different wide variety of groups that can provide all different kinds of instruction. We've all, hopefully, you've seen Chris Costa, so you've seen, we've talked about the Appleseed guys. There's a whole wide range of people that do things that are specific to rifles, and a lot of that technique will go from platform to platform. A lot of those basic fundamentals will cross platform to platform, so I would definitely encourage you to do that, and then you can move into the more advanced things. I still need to work on those fundamentals, so hopefully I'm going to be able to get some fundamentals training here over the next while. If any of you guys know some really good fundamentals training close by to Southern Alabama, please feel free to send that information into me and into the podcast here, and Reed will pass that along to me. Sources of information here that I've got, and I again, anything here that I'm talking about, if you guys have additional information, please pass that along. It'll make it into the feedback in the next episode or two, and we'd love to be able to pass that back along out to everyone who is interested in information for guys that are new to the shooting arena like I am. One of the things that I've found that is a really great source of information are magazines, trade magazines. I picked up an issue of Recoil magazine, which if you're not reading that, you really, really should be, and it's just filled with unbelievably great information on ARs. And I also picked up an issue of AR-15 magazine, which again, is filled with really great information on ARs, talking about different billet items that are coming up, and some of the positives and negatives. There's a lot of really, really good bits and pieces that are in those magazines that the more and more I get to read those, the more I build my knowledge base. So hopefully the better host I will be for you guys here on the podcast, and the better information we'll be able to bring to you as a listener. But I'd also encourage you to go out and check out those magazines as well, and as I'm sure a large majority of you probably already do, but if you don't, I'd definitely encourage you to go do so. And then there are other forums, and I'm not even going to try to start listing the forums, because I know that almost everyone here has at least 1 or 2 internet forums that you go to. Snipers Hide, no, I'm not even going to go anymore. Not going to mention anymore. There are so many different forums out there on the internet with AR-15 information that I'm not even going to try to list those. But forums can be a very good place to find information, and a very dangerous place to find information, because you don't know what the qualifications are of the person who's offering the information. So while you're doing your research, you don't know if you're talking to a 15-year-old who has been shooting ARs for 12 years, since he was 3. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's possible. And he knows everything there is to know about them. Or if you're talking to a 35-year-old who's been shooting ARs for 2. So I definitely encourage you to check your source and make sure that they actually know what they're talking about. And one good way to do that is to continually check multiple forums, and if you see the exact same type of information that comes up over and over and over and over again, and it's not the same guy, that's important as well, from different people, then you will find often that that information is correct. So when I go out and I look at the gas block replacement that I did on my AR so that I could put my 45-degree offset sights and replace my A2 front sight on it, I said, okay, well, what are some of the problems I might run into when I'm changing the front sight? And so I read and read and read and read and read. It took me about 3 or 4 days to go through and read everything, and I still didn't come across half the problems that on the forums that I actually came across in real life, but I was able to foresee quite a few, which was very, very, very helpful. So I would most certainly encourage you to read forums and find out as much as you can for information. And of course, like we talked about, there's if you find a good forum with really great people, stick to it. There's some really wonderful ones out there. I found a couple of myself that I really like, and haunt those things. And if you've got great knowledge to pass on, please find one and pass on some of that knowledge as well. Then there's YouTube. We're broadcasting live right now with Google Plus over YouTube, so I can definitely encourage you to go there, obviously, and there's the same type of filters and rules apply on YouTube as apply anywhere else. You have to make sure that all sources are talking about. I've gone and watched some videos on YouTube that I could have sworn that it was probably a 10 or a 12-year-old child showing me how to do something on an AR. From the sound of the voice and the look of the hands, but the information was very well presented. It was very accurate, very articulately said, and presented very well, and met very high expectations that I had. And then I've seen some others that were just not quite done that well. So be just picky. Be picky when you're looking for your information, and it'll come across the way you want it if you spend enough time searching for it. Google is your friend. But at the same time, Google is your enemy. Google will give you anything and everything. So the more specific keywords, if you're searching for things on how to do a specific item, how to do a specific thing for your AR, or a specific part or something like that, that will help you quite a bit. Again, those are generic internet searching type skills, but again, they can be very, very helpful if you're trying to learn how to do something for your AR. Say you wanted to learn how to replace your gas block. When I was getting ready to do that specific project, I needed to know, number one, what type of gas block did I have on my existing AR, so I had to make sure I knew what that was an A2 gas block, and then I needed to look up the A2 gas block and find out how that attaches to the barrel. What type of tools do I need to remove that? And so I was able to find those. And then once, what were the steps to remove that? I found a great Brownell's video that actually showed me how to do all that. And then I think I mentioned this once before. This is just a little aside, the very first piece to get the gas block off is to take the flash hider off the end of the barrel. And I spent 3 days trying to get a barrel vise to work. I made one out of 2x4 and masking tape. It should have worked, but it didn't. So I bought one made of a resin online, and it should have worked, but didn't. And I was getting really frustrated, and I went online, and it's like everything keeps slipping. No matter how tight I get the vise, everything keeps slipping, and the upper keeps trying to turn. What's going on? I mean, it's factory tightened, so I expected it to be really good and tight, but it didn't want to crack open. And I saw a suggestion on a forum, and I had no way to tell whether or not the guy giving the information was truthful or not, because it wasn't one of my usual places that I go to. But it said to use powdered sugar. And I thought, well, that sure is strange. What would that do? And I thought, well, will it really give it enough grip? I mean, if you really compress down on that powdered sugar hard in between that resin, on the barrel, it shouldn't scratch the barrel. I can get it off. Can't hurt anything. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, the flash hider was off. So, and that was after 3 days of effort. So you can find some really great things using Google, but you just have to be very careful and think about it on your own and make sure that you're not going to do something that could cause damage or cause problems with your equipment or cause a dangerous situation. Especially, you want to be very careful not to cause any sort of a dangerous situation. And of course, you got your friends. If you've got friends that are into firearms, they can be a wonderful source of information, and so be sure to go to them and ask them for any help. I mean, everybody knows that. That's just a common sense kind of thing. And then, oh wow, podcasts maybe? No. Please come to us if you've got a question, as a lot of people do. Come back and ask us. Even if it's a topic that we've already covered in the past and there's something specific, feel free to write into us, and we can either refer you to the specific episode, or if it's something that maybe we haven't covered in a long time, we can either do a new episode on that if we get several pieces of email requesting that, or we can send you a quick email back with some helpful tips or tricks, or just a piece of information that you might need. I know Reed does that constantly during the week, and if it comes through, I'll be more than happy to help if I can, obviously. There are a few things that I can answer, and speaking of that, we'll move on to listener feedback right here. And our first piece of listener feedback comes from Glenn. And Glenn says, "Hey Reed, Reed, I hope you're doing okay this evening, Reed. He's not here right now. Hey Reed, is this the standard running price you're seeing these days?" He's talking about on an FNH FN15, their new AR-15 variant. A few weeks ago, I saw that it was $1,400 to $1,600. I saw this one in person, and he thinks he can get it for right at $1,000 after tax. Well, Glenn, I did a little bit of looking online myself, checked several different websites, and it looks like the MSRP is around $1,200, and it looks like most websites are selling it for anywhere from just under $1,000 to just over $1,000. So I think that is about the standard price that you're seeing there, around $1,000. So yeah, I'd say you should be able to get that for right around $1,000. That's good. And that is the fixed stock 20-inch barrel version is the one that he was referring to, guys. Our next piece of feedback comes from Jesse. Jesse says, "I've listened to you guys for a long time, and I have learned a lot. But one thing I'm confused about is the differences between the M4 and A2 upper. Have you guys discussed this in the past? If not, can you please? What would make me want to choose one style over the other?" Well, and Reed will probably correct me, so please, again, this is the AR Noob, so please, guys, bear with me, and when I get this wrong, or if I get this wrong, let me know. I think you may have meant A4 and A2 upper, because if unless I'm wrong, M4 is the military version of the rifle, not necessarily just the upper. And the uppers would be an A2, A3, A4, and they deal more with the sight configurations than anything else, I think. I've read some different things, that there are some different things with some of the feeding ramps and things of that nature. But if the A2s and the A3s were, A2 is a fixed carry handle for the most part, as far as what I've been able to really determine, and that the A3 is flat top all the way, and that the A4 is a carry handle, but it's removable with a flat top underneath. That seems to be the consensus. I know that my rifle is a removable carry handle, and it's an A4. It's a Bushmaster A4. So I think that's correct, but Reed will probably tell me how I'm wrong next week, so please keep that in mind, and we'll follow up again next week with you when Reed is back on board with us. And Jesse continues, and he says, "Another topic I would love to learn more about is barrel gas block forearm combinations. It appears you can't just mix and match, but I can't find a good source of information on this topic either. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Jesse." Well, Jesse, this one I've done a decent amount of reading on. I would not by any stretch of the mind call myself an expert. But since I have replaced the gas block, I have looked at a ton of different gas block options, and I've considered a forearm replacement. So I have, again, also looked at a decent amount of those as well. Now, I have not done a whole lot with barrel replacements, but I have heard the guys talk about a decent amount of it. So I'll give you what I can as far as information on that. The gas block the barrel issues primarily deal with the length of the gas tube system, I believe. So you'd have to get, if you're going to get a barrel replacement, you would want to get one that has the same gas tube length as what you have now. There are some restrictions on going shorter or longer, and again, I'll refer that one to the guys for next week to be able to answer and do a better job with that, because I don't remember all the details. I know that the shorter you get there, the more pressure you're getting into that gas tube, which is going to cause the bolt to cycle faster. It can cause, or I think that's correct anyway, and that can cause some issues. So they typically do the mid-length or rifle length on most systems. And that typically will go, if you got a 20-inch, you're probably going to go with a rifle length system. Carbine length, I think, or mid-length. I'm not sure what uses the smaller. Again, I'm not 100% sure on that. So if you're replacing your barrel, unless you need to go to a different length barrel, I would probably stay with the same gas length system that you currently have for that barrel. Now, when it comes to your gas block, if you're talking about when you change out the foregrip there, if you're going to go with a longer foregrip, then you need to get a low-profile gas block so that the foregrip can go over top. And then there are some, if you're going with a shorter foregrip, and you're going to leave your gas block in place, you can get a two-piece foregrip, and there are several different versions out there that can snap on and without having to remove the gas block. It deals with the delta ring and being able to put on that gas block. They add a foregrip without having to remove the gas block. It comes in two pieces and snaps on the top and the bottom of the barrel. I've seen several of those out there. That's one of the considerations that I had. Now, what I did with mine is I wanted to be able to put iron sights on the front. And so if you're looking at gas blocks that are not low profile because you want to be able to put a sight on the front, then there are two considerations there. That rail that you're going to have on that gas block on the front can have two heights. It can be a low height. It can be a standard rail height. I forget exactly what the name for that is. Again, me and my newbie status, I don't remember exactly. But it ends up being the same height as the rail at the back. So if you had a foregrip that had a rail on that, and you had a rail on your upper receiver, that would be the same height as your gas block rail, which is what mine is, so that everything would be the exact same height. So when you put your sights on that front gas block, they will be the same height as your rear sights, so you don't have to do any sort of strange calculations or strange things when you're zeroing your sights in. And that's the reason that I got that tall front sight gas block, so it will be good for my front sight. So those are the considerations that I've gone through. I'm sure the guys will be able to speak a little bit more to that next week, and I'll ask them to follow up on that question just a little bit to see if there are any other considerations they need to go through. And our last piece of feedback comes from Tom J. Hey guys, working on my second build on the cheap. What's your opinion on an upper receiver without a forward assist? Is it really needed? Keep up the good work, and thank you for the somewhat new host, JW, and the newbie, Anthony. They make the podcast more enjoyable, especially since I'm somewhat of a newbie, too. Thanks, Tom J. And yes, definitely. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the fact that you appreciate my newbiness and my willingness to ask some, I won't call them stupid questions because I don't believe there is such a thing as stupid questions, but newbie questions for those of us that just might not know quite as much as some of these guys that have been around for quite some time, been doing this for a long time. When it comes to a forward assist, I did a lot of reading about that a couple of years ago, and the consensus seemed to be, and again, this is not from personal experience, this is from research a while back, but the consensus seemed to be that a forward assist is very rarely needed, but most guys seem to say, yeah, I'd like to have it on my rifle, but I've never used one. So again, that seemed to be what the consensus was from the forums, but like I said, I did not have at the time any forums that I was very comfortable with the level of knowledge of the people that were there, so I don't know whether they were speaking from 20 years of combat experience or they were speaking from 5 weeks of experience at the range. So I can't tell you whether or not that information is helpful or accurate. I can tell you from my experience over the last couple of years, I haven't had to use my forward assist. I haven't seen a situation in which it would be helpful at all. But I guess if it depends on what your use case scenario for your rifle is going to be. I can see where if I were going to be in a combat situation and the possibility could exist where that might happen, or if I'm going to be in a self-defense situation where I was going to depend on that rifle for my life, that I would like to have that forward assist there in case. Because if that's ever an option, that rifle might be needed to defend my life, and that was going to be a possibility that might happen, and that forward assist might be able to help me clear a jam or something along those lines, then I would definitely like to have that. That's my personal opinion. So, man, my rifle does have a forward assist. I think it's the Bushmaster Carbon, I believe, doesn't have one. I think it also doesn't have a dust cover, too. So, again, those are just depending on your use case for your rifle and what you think you might need it for. So, again, guys, that's my take on the Newbie AR Experience. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a very short show this evening. I apologize. I'd hoped to be able to regale you with some tales from my uncle. I can't pass them on secondhand. It just doesn't go that well. He was kind enough to do that for me this weekend. He was a policeman and worked with SWAT in the Atlanta area for many, many, many years before he retired. And so I got quite a good number of stories this weekend. And I'm hopeful that perhaps he'll be able to come on the show in the future weeks. He and maybe another one of his colleagues or two may join us, perhaps. But hopefully I was able to give you a little bit of information if you are a newbie like me. And if you're not, maybe there was a refresher here that might have given you a little part or parcel of information. So that is our show for the evening. It's very short, very sweet, and we will see you next week. So as always, send any questions or comments to feedback@ar15podcast.com. Send us a recorded voicemail using the SpeakPipe plugin on the right-hand side of the AR-15 podcast website. And guys, if you do that, I might send you a lollipop. Follow FRN on Facebook. Radio. Follow us on Google+. And watch us live like we are right now at firearmsradio.tv/plus. Check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/firearmsradio. And share your pics with us on Flickr at flickr.com/groups/blackrifle. Don't forget to check out our other podcasts on the Firearms Radio Network. We've got quite a few of them, guys. You really should check them out. And subscribe and listen to the podcast for free at firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. Be sure to leave an iTunes review so iTunes knows to place the show higher in listener searches. Don't forget to use our Brownells affiliate link, as we discussed earlier, for all of your AR-15 parts at ar15podcast.com/parts. And our Amazon affiliate link for all of your other Amazon needs is ar15podcast.com/Amazon. And again, thank you guys for joining us, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.